get off your butt and walk around the block, you're making progress. Now, the issue is, can you control it so you actually can measure progress of health? And that's where all of those frameworks come into play. I do have mine associated with the ISO framework, but on the flip side, I can translate it to COSO, I can talk COBIT, I can talk those others. The issue is the second language factor comes back into play. As far as return on investment, sometimes they lay those out for you to be trapped in them, and quite frankly, wrong conversation to have at times. Sometimes it's, you know, if I was to ask Jeremiah, what's the return on investment of taking care of your daughter and your son? You know, can you quantify that? Sometimes you're talking about somebody's baby, and they will certainly raise up in your face when you tell them that their baby is ugly, which is what some of you are doing in your approach of trying to get security into the product development life cycle.
So you're saying Jeremiah is...
No, don't go.
Yeah, for the record, we both
especially with people that can take me out. So no. And then as far as, you know, what do I leverage? And let me make sure I've got the question the way you framed it. You know, I'm trying to leverage all of that to basically say, I understand what motivates you to come to work and pay your mortgage. You are concerned about mortgage continuity, as we all are. And if I'm just here to see what I can get out of you to push my agenda, I've already lost. I need to be in the position of going, okay, how do I help you capture that revenue from our clients? Because I can tell you that my clients are going to put you through either a code review or dynamic testing or EI, or even better, sometimes it's a win-win for our clients. If I can show them the due diligence that we're already doing in the form of application vulnerability assessments, network host vulnerability assessments, annual pen tests, SAS 70, EIO, then some of the clients go, so I can move forward with this project, and you just saved me on my budget to leverage for my other clients. We love you. Great, guess what? The sales guy goes, I just got my revenue, I just got my bonus, and maybe even the vacation with the wife. And what did I do? Just laid out what we're already doing. And so I showed that there's a benefit of our proactive due diligence in doing this, and it's not an obstacle, it's not a hurdle, it's certainly not a hammer. It's how can I equip you to get what you want in a safe and secure manner, which actually gives me what I want.
Yep. And I'll tie a bow on this conversation and just add one thing. It's really also about your personal credibility and the business knowledge, being able to have that conversation. So if out of the blue they come up and say, show an ROI, you're already playing defense to some degree. And I think, so a lot of the conversations that Ed and John and others have really are, the successful nature of this conversation are teed up well before they have them. And I'm gonna ask if we could call your colleague behind me. Okay, your question's been answered. Okay, go for it.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because basically what the CIO was trying to do is do a positive spin instead of doing a negative spin. A lot of times as IT security, you know, in the old days we said, well, one of the reasons why you want to do IT security is to protect your reputation. You don't want to have your company, organization, whatever on the newspapers, and then you lose client trust and do all that stuff. It's all basic scare tactics. So they're trying to do a positive spin. The CIO was trying to do a positive spin in that. Yeah, we try to also address it as a risk and loss factors and so on and so forth in there. The reason why I was looking for is more or less a concrete way of measuring, some kind of a measurement that can be done that says, okay, the standard scare tactic has always been like that. You're going to risk a lot.
Let me tell one story, and you can take this one as an example. And it depends on the organization, but we work for a hosting company, and what they do, they have security people who are able to answer the key concerns and questions and audit questions of potential clients.
Right.
All of whom those sales would be dead if they weren't able to answer those questions intelligently. And we've been on conference calls with them, and they were able to basically, particularly cloud services and things that are very esoteric, put the customers' concerns, at ease and enable the sale. The sale would not have happened. So that's something to quantify. So it depends on your organization, and I think it's driven off personal credibility of the person having that discussion too. So I'll tie it to that. I have one question. We've got about 10 minutes left, so if you have any other questions, start to formulate those now. But I want to just ask, You know, from an AppSec standpoint, what are some of the key successes you've had? What are the biggest bang for the buck, either programmatic, product-wise? If there was a magic box that you put in, for example, we won't name that magic box, but a magic box-like thing, and we'll start with Ed.
For me, it was doing a twofold. I didn't go straight to the software development lifecycle and try to fix that for any development shop. Reason being is, again, I'd be telling them their baby is ugly or deficient and not the way I want to go. What I do want to position is training up front and interesting stats that I need to kind of go through. But from a defensibility standpoint, I can't not do it. So I need to measure, do I need to do it? What's the outcome? But I cannot do it because that shows no effort. And then on the back end, security testing. And using a software service provider to be able to execute on that. Both companies are represented here. The biggest issue there is that I didn't go and use it as a hammer and say, I'm now going to evaluate you, let me, all right, you need to lose a little weight. You know, regardless of how you frame that, that is never a good conversation.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if I say, you know what, I'm going to equip your team to self-evaluate yourself. Now, it just so happens that I'm using tools that allow me to govern that and gain that insight as part of my discovery process. But initially, the initial foray is, I'm not doing this to you. I am giving you for free some tools to be able to then self-assess yourself. Now I get a landscape and I go, okay, I've got straight A students and crack babies and everything in between. Now, how do I approach those different groups in order to normalize and stabilize whatever program I'm trying to establish?
Richard? Well, it's a multi-pronged approach, basically. I can't say there's one, because then I'll be deficient in the others and it'll just fall apart. So, part of it's PR, and we talked about the allies earlier. So, I struggled and finally got the opportunity to do a presentation to the head of public health on some of the things. And we based it all as we're the great enablers. Because, of course, you want to be able to use the latest technology, but and then I kind of glossed over this part, you know, the fear and doubt thing. I said, of course, we can't put all the patient information out to the whole internet for the whole world to just have. But we have to use the internet, we have to. So I showed how we worked with a team of developers and project managers to put out on the web a way for clients to get their personal EPHI. And, you know, this should have happened a long time ago, but we're government, we're a little behind time-wise. But the whole presentation was about how we work together and how we're here to help and how we work to enable this key business goal for the head of the whole in public health. So once that occurred, people all of a sudden would start calling us. You know, we want to do this thing, and every single time anyone asked me for something, traditional security going back years, or where you can't do that, I could never say that. It would always have to be, how can I figure out a way that they can accomplish their goal? Because there's always a way, because if we don't do it, they'll do it. Remember the old days of the access points. Oh, we can't have access points. People will come and bridge it into their laptops or PCs. It's going to happen. So make sure that you know what's going on in your organization and then figure out a way to do it. So that was a key thing. Also working with the project management office was really key. Baking security into the early stages of every project and making that well known throughout the organization. So we don't get hit at the 11th hour. Bless this application, please. No, there's no way, not the way this is written. Oh, it's mission critical and it has to go on tomorrow. Yeah. None of us, that's never happened to you.
That movie, we know how that movie ends, right?
Right. Yeah. So the key thing is get into the process early, get a list of questions at every stage of the development life cycle. Have to be working in conjunction with project management.
So there wasn't one thing.
You can't ever be.
Okay.
Well, for us, it was taking a center of excellence approach to this whole thing, and turning it into a program. Not these siloed projects that go on all over the place. So, our center of excellence approach is we created this office of the CTO. So, what we do is we basically build programs and processes that can be leveraged. We're a very federated organization. We've grown by acquisition. 26 or 28 over the last 5 or 6 years. So you get people doing a lot of different things a lot of different ways. So we created the Center of Excellence concept so that we have this product risk management program that has these risk domains. We have one for security, one for code quality, third-party components, legal, regulatory compliance, you name it, we have a risk domain for it. So we give them processes to help them manage this risk, and then we deliver the technology and the tools to enable and support that in an effective and efficient manner. And I think we're probably using the same two vendors that Ed talked about, but they've been a major facilitator in helping us deploy that program and, you know, help us to incorporate training and education and all these other aspects. So we first had to pick, okay, where's the leak the largest? And that was kind of in the QA stage. So we kind of took our SDLC and said, hey, where can I plug in something to kind of stop the bleeding right now, to at least do some triage? And then you start to work your way earlier into the SDLC so that, you know, now you move into the build cycle. So, okay, now you give a developer something in their environment where they can minimize the number of defects that are going to turn up in QA. And then you move earlier on into defining security requirements because, okay, this is a PHI application that processes PC credit cards. So now you can say, okay, well, based on that, as you talked about mapping across those different frameworks, these are all my security requirements that will help me meet these regulatory compliance pieces. So it's an enablement is what that Center of Excellence is for those various development teams.
Tom, what have you seen in your days?
So, in my professional space, it's education, assessment, and controls, right? So, depending on the organization's definition of what the treasure is, I think that's a very important component. Is having them rewind and really start looking exactly what is the most precious item. Case kind of conversation was pharmaceutical company after getting to the root cause of the organization as to what's really, really important. Then what was really, really important was lab books. Little lab books that the scientists were using in their laboratory areas. Why? Because these were the things that they determined that were the most precious to their long-term business strategy about developing new drugs and new components and new care items that aren't actually put in or logged into the system yet. So that was a physical control item. And then, of course, the application had an internal control issue. So as things grow, it's really a matter of looking back to, again, like I say, education and then assessment to determine where the problems are, and then controls that can help mitigate. But it really comes down to what the treasure is. If the organization can quantify that, what do they really do? What's really important to the business? Trying to help them safeguard against that is the key. So no product in particular rings a bell, but I think most organizations, especially in the AppSec space, being OWASP-centric, is that A, they don't know what they have, right? They have an address space, public facing, let's say, in the AppSec world. They don't even know how many web servers they have. So the first step is, what do you own, right? And then next step is, well, what's the threat factor of these particular items that are public facing? How do you classify these assets? Have you done that yet? And then once you have that established, you know what you own, they've been classified, and they've been threat modeled to determine potentially which one they're what asset level. You then have another question of really who's your adversary. If you start looking at your adversary component, and Jeremiah articulates this very well, you have folks that are looking at random opportunistic, that are doing iframe injection across the world of any public-facing box that's susceptible to it, down to target organizations that are putting the best team of people in a room together to go attack a treasure chest. It truly matters on how you're going to apply your budget and how you're going to help in the AppSec space. But again, it goes back to education, assessment, and controls.
We have time for a couple of questions.
If I can, let me do the antithesis. Okay. How many different things that we've seen that have absolutely failed?
Yeah, I want to hear that one too.
And what's interesting is you hear all of us, and none of us said, buy a tool. And yet, in deference of all of the space, if you take a look at most of the failures that I've personally seen, it's buying a tool, and I'm going to use your hammer. It's like buying a hammer for your second cousin. Well, is that second cousin a 40-year-old, lifelong craftsman? Or is it a 3.5-year-old that's just going to do fun things with the hammer? Buying the most expensive set of surgical tools and providing it to my daughter does not make her a surgeon. So, quite frankly, the Hail Mary pass of buying a tool and that will fix it never does. It actually makes things worse and actually muddies the water to actually fixing the long-term problem. But having the right tools to fix the right problem, how many of you have a grandfather that says, the right tool makes all the difference if you know what you're doing? That's absolutely true. So it's finding that discernment as you go through and pitch that within your
A
organization.
fool with a tool is still a fool.
Amen.
A fool with a tool is still a fool.
You have your process. in
Words,
place.
I may borrow that one, John, if you don't mind.
That's okay, because I borrowed that one.
Yeah, we have a question in the back. Yes, sir.